The following program has a thin plot, poor character development, and graphics that are so abysmal you'll think you stepped into a time portal and landed in the early 1970s. It's the Pearl Harbor of podcasts, but the much lower budget version and featuring far too much Amber Heard. With that in mind, I may exceed your expectations. Probably not.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the following program. I am your host, Joe Neerman, a.k.a. Good Lawgic. Hope your day went as phenomenally well as my draft did. Not that I'm getting much love. I'm not getting sufficient love. When I'm looking at what my draft board here is saying, and they're telling me that I'm not projected to have the most points in the league this week, I say I call nonsense. That's the nicest word I can use. Nonsense. 'Tis nonsense. No. Somehow I ended up walking out with Amon St. Brown and Bijan. That's right. I'm going to be Bijan Boo. I'm going to be Bijan Boo. I don't know what you guys... Yeah, okay. Yeah, I don't have the best team. Okay. Maybe not. Maybe I don't. We'll see. Only time will tell. Anyhow, none of you care about that. Well, maybe like a handful of you care about that. But we're not here to talk about fantasy football. No. We are here to talk about Brian Ogden saying thank you and me saying you're welcome. Not sure what for, but we're also here because Master Phillips, disciple number 7, just pops on in here. That's right, pops on in here. King of recruitment just pops on in here and hits us with 5. Count them. Whoops. I said 5. 5 Good Logic memberships. 5 new members of the following. 5 new people who are based. 5 people who are now blessed, courtesy of the King of Recruitment. Should we see who we brought in here? I think it's a good idea. Let's take a quick look at who we brought on in here. Sarah Long, Taylor N, Rachel Hope Brinstein Engelhart. There you go. RHBE. Karen Mannings and Andy Gorski, all of them gifted memberships courtesy of King of Recruitment, Master Phillips. God bless you, Master Phillips. Everyone, raise a champagne glass. Raise a champagne glass to our King of Recruitment, bringing these 5 new people into the most based following ever. Well known, indisputably. Not at all a cult type of cult. I'm not the leader of the following. That's crystal clear. And welcome aboard. Welcome aboard to the following. Following is your new home. It's your new home. And we're glad to have you. Each and every one of you. Each and every one. Also, I have here, what this is okay. It's not spelled Bishan. You don't even know who you're talking about. You know what you're talking about with none of your voodoo, hinky-dinky kind of jinxes and stuff like that. It's not how you spell it even. Go put your little evil eye, cast your little evil eye on that guy. All right. I want to open up before I get into the debate, the reason I want to cover this debate is because I think there's a bunch of topics in there which really help flesh out, gives me a lot of opportunity to riff on and give you perspectives on. I don't get to cover quite every day, especially hearing from various Democrats and things of that nature. So I was like, you know what? I think this is a good platform to work with. That was the reason I want to cover that. But I do need to cover this decision that came from Judge Hellerstein out of federal court regarding Donald Trump's efforts to remove the criminal case in the state of New York, the one that resulted in 34 guilty verdicts. No convictions, 34 verdicts. 34 verdicts And he doesn't want them to turn into convictions, has concerns that maybe Judge Merchan will issue convictions. For all we know, you're going to have him thrown in prison. For all we know, next week, 2 weeks, September 18th is when it's supposed to be decided. So Donald Trump went to federal court, said, hey, why are we here in state court? I want to go to federal court. I don't want to be here. Don't make no sense why I should be here. This doesn't make no sense. Not the first time he tried getting this case taken over to federal court. And I was hoping that there are new grounds that can help get him in there that were not present the first time he made this application. Judge Hellerstein issued a decision today denying the application to have it removed to federal court. I'm going to talk with you about what that decision was. I'm going to go through it. It's relatively short, only 4 pages. I'm going to walk you through the procedural elements behind this. This way you're more informed than your average bear. And walk you through what the next steps we should anticipate are likely to happen. I also want to break down for you my perspectives as to whether or not this is reflective of anti-Trump leanings, or is this rooted in actual law? Because I'll tell you right now, we looked at Judge Merchan and some of his decisions, and they seem unusual. What I would call errors of law. Not being derisive of Judge Merchan, I simply think of them as being grave errors of law. I am admitted in New York. It's part of the canons of ethics of New York attorneys that we're not supposed to disparage the court, and I'm not disparaging Judge Merchan. I simply think that many of his decisions in that particular case were devoid of logic, reason, or basis in law. But we're not focused on him today. Today we're focused on Judge Hellerstein and seeing whether or not whether he gave a fair shake and said no, or whether he seems to be leaning. I'll give you my opinions on that. Let's start with that. Judge Alvin K. Hellerstein, U.S. District Judge, in the order and an opinion denying the motion for leave to file removal papers. Removal papers are basically when you file an application saying, I want to remove this from state courts and take it over to the federal system, take it over to federal court. So that's what the application is referred to under the law. Former President Donald Trump seeks removal of the criminal case against him from the Supreme Court of New York to this court. So, Supreme Court, as I mentioned many times, I'll probably mention many more times, in New York, we call our lowest level trial court the Supreme Court. And he's trying to get it out of that trial court, bring it over to the federal district court in Southern District of New York. Why we reference number 1 was the first time. So he said, Mr. Trump requests in the alternative, he doesn't mention that. He just says, in the alternative, he permitted to amend the first removal notice. So you file what's called a removal notice, and then the federal court has to say whether or not they're accepting it. So he had filed a first removal notice, which was rejected by the court. So he's like, look, either look at this as my second application or amend the first one. This is like a procedural question. So let's amend the first one and count this as my first one amended. So Judge Hellerstein says, because the prosecution was completed through trial, this request is denied as academic, meaning you were making a request a year ago, well before the trial happened, to try and get out of a year and a half ago, try to get out of state court. And I'm telling you, and we said no then at that point. And you can't ask to amend that now that you've gone through the entire trial process. So that's why we're not looking at this as amendment. We're looking at this as a brand new application. Upon removal, as the district judge to whom this case was assigned, my task, pursuant to 28 U.S.C. 1455B, subsection 4, is to, quote, examine the notice promptly. So my first step is I have to look at the notice and go through it. And if it clearly appears on the face of the notice and any exhibits annexed thereto that removal should not be permitted, meaning you want to remove it over from state court, remove it from there to here. So if I deem that to be not permitted, I am to make an order for summary remand. I'm supposed to issue an order remanding, sending it back to state court. That's my job under 1455B4. So, and let's just pull that up. Oops, that was one I wanted. It was this one. This is 18 USC 1455. Sorry, 28 USC 1455. B4. United States District Court in which such notice filed shall examine the notice promptly. If it clearly appears on the face of the notice and any exhibits thereto that removal should not be permitted, the court shall make an order for summary remand. Meaning, if you're not going to take it, you don't think it's permitted for it to come here to federal court, you have to kick it back. The moment he files that notice of removal, it does serve to take it out of state court. So it temporarily steps over into federal court. Then federal court has to basically be like, I got it, we got it, or no mas, no, go back. Put up a big border wall there. I'm very much unlike the Biden administration ever considered doing, but the federal court does do that frequently. In fact, more often than not, they will say no if they're given the opportunity. My personal experience. I haven't done the statistics, but that's my personal experience, is that it's not uncommon for them to, it's rather common for them to say, not coming here. So his duty is to do it promptly. Look at it, see, and if you deem it to be deficient facially, send it back. And that's what he's doing. If summary remand is not appropriate, let's say I don't know for sure that we're supposed to reject it, I am to, quote, order an evidentiary hearing to be held promptly, and after such hearing, to make such disposition of the prosecution as justice shall require, which is 1455B5, which was the next section. If we don't order the summary remand, in that case, it's my job to have an evidentiary hearing to see whether your basis for trying to move it here is justifiable. Evidentiary hearing, bring in witnesses and we'll start testifying on certain facts that would lead to conclusions of law that result in the justification to say, hey, this should be taken out of the state court's hands and brought over here. Okay. And you can understand how this is something that's obviously very necessary when you have state court, you have two different judicial systems that are working in a bicameral type of way, that are operating at the same time with different areas of jurisdiction in order for them to a case to flow from one system to a completely different system. There has to be some sort of basis in law that would justify transferring it over there. And there has to be a basis for communication and steps that are going to be taken by usually the federal court taking as far with respect to, are we taking this case or not? Now, sometimes removal can work the opposite way also. Someone can be in federal court and say, we don't belong here, I want to go to state court. That can happen as well. But that's obviously not the scenario here. All right. Since defendant filed his notice after he was tried, so we're in a little bit of different scenario. You went through the whole trial process already. He must show, quote, good cause and seek leave from the district court to file the notice at a later time under 28 USC 1455 B1. Let's go check out that. B1, a notice of removal of criminal prosecution shall be filed not later than 30 days after the arraignment in state court, or at any time before trial, whichever is earlier, except that for good cause. So if I don't have that, which he doesn't, it's not within 30 days of arraignment, it's not before trial. So whichever, except that as good cause shown, the only exception would be if there's good cause shown, the United States District Court may enter an order granting defendants leave to file the notice at a later time. So if you have good cause, we're not going to hold your feet to the fire on these timing deadlines. You can see there's actually a lot of thought into like trying to cover all sorts of different scenarios here in ways that are actually fair. It's one of the reasons that, you know, as implemented, as drafted, as codified, our judicial system does work in terms of fairness that most Americans would expect it to work. I'm a pretty firm believer in that. the way we set up our justice system as designed, we gave our judiciary every chance to do things fairly. This is a very logical law right here. Okay. The second notice may argue only grounds not existing at the time of the original notice or show good cause why district court should grant relief from the limitations above stated. So, if you're coming with a new notice now, you can say, hey, I have to come with this new notice. That you want to know my good cause is? There's something happened after those timing deadlines, which is relevant to the decision of whether or not it should be transferred from state court to federal court. There are different factors that arose, which could be factual or legal, like in other words, for decisions of law, which did not exist when you made your decision the first time. So now that we have this new thing and the time has run, and I'm trying to come here with my second application, that's my good cause. I couldn't bring this claim to you beforehand because this claim didn't have any justifiability on my first go around or during the first 30 days after arraignment. So that would be good cause, which would justify, as the court is properly explaining here. Let me just pull up these chats real quick, and then we'll resume. We will resume. They'll give Trump parole, home confinement, because he can't get bond pending appeal. It's possible. It's possible he'll try to order that. That's definitely a possibility. Joe, did you hear about Germany trying to arrest a man for calling a politician fat? Kamala covered. And you think our system's bad? You think our system's bad? Look what's happening over in Brazil, in South America, with the no freedom of speech, in the EU, with Germany basically saying, "Oh, you call someone fat." You think things are rough here? This is the best place on earth, and you can say "woe unto humanity" for that. I wouldn't blame you for saying "woe unto humanity" for that, but every place you look at, somehow a little worse than here. Trump crime spans multi-states as he made payments from D.C. to New York. Could that be basis for removal? Great question you're asking here. That would not be the best basis for removal. Because what you're thinking of is, when you're thinking about interstate activity in that regard, that's more of a civil issue. You're trying to say, well, I've got this interstate thing that I'm doing here in D.C. and this bookkeeping is in New York, or whatever else that you're trying to justify. That's not really. It's really a stronger basis would be an issue of federal question. They're trying to basically rely on a federal law. They purportedly violated a federal law. That was the basis as what he put forward, I believe, the first time when he tried getting it removed. Now, the prosecutors, together with Merchan, which is horrifying to say that phrase because prosecutors are not supposed to be working with Merchan, but prosecutors and Merchan creatively came up with one step into another step to try and come up with how there's a state felony. There's a state court felony here, irrespective of federal court or federal law, by giving novel reinterpretations of state law. So, for example, saying like it's a federal election, but you're trying to steal election. Stealing election is a state crime, but it's trying to steal a federal election. So that's a state crime to try and steal a federal election? Okay, that's pretty novel. But anyhow, so I don't think that would work. I don't think that argument would work. Saying, well, I was in two states, therefore I have a right to go to federal court. The reason why, what Allegan is basically referencing here is, in general, when you want to go to federal courts, and normally we're dealing in a civil scenario, there are two bases to try and get into federal courts if in a civil scenario. Number one would be if there's what's called an issue of federal question, meaning the statute that I'm trying to apply under to try and get relief under is a federal law. It's not a state law. So that would get you automatic admission into federal court. For example, if you're suing the United States of America because you got hit by a postal worker. You have to go to federal court. Let's say there's some federal statute that says someone who's a victim of a certain type of crime, let's say criminally sharing photographs, has a civil cause of action under, and the person who, the perpetrator, the victim of that crime, has a civil cause of action against the perpetrator. So now the basis for that civil cause of action is this federal statute. So that's an issue of federal questions of law with respect to that federal statute. So that's one way that we would say, okay, now you're able, even though both of you are in the same jurisdiction, you're both from the same state, whether that state is New York or California or any, doesn't really matter, any Wyoming, any state in the union, because it's a matter of federal question, you can go straight to federal court. Alternatively, there's a theory called diversity, which is that when you're suing someone if you're suing someone from a different state, so I come from state A, you are not from state A, you, the defendant, are from state B. So there's the question and matter exceeds $75,000, has to be at least $75,000.01 or more. If that's the scenario, you can come in under a theory under 18 U.S.C. 1331, which is diversity, that you say there's a diversity here of citizenship by state. Now, I'm from state A, they're from state B, and historically, the reason that was developed conceptually as a basis for federal court is because historically, an individual's ties to the states were far more strongly regarded than they are today. Virginians looked at themselves as Virginians when the colonies were converted to states. They didn't look at themselves as Americans. And the same thing for South Carolinians and Georgians and New Yorkers. Everyone sort of looked at themselves as residents of, as their state is their homeland. So the concern was that if you go to a state court, that there would be a perception of bias in favor of the resident of that state. Because, this is a fellow Virginia. I'm a New Yorker. I'm going to go down to Virginia and try and fight with a Virginian in a Virginian state court. I got no chance. The perception was that if I have to go to Virginia and I'm in a federal court in Virginia, that I'm not going to be facing the same bias. It's difficult for us today to understand how anyone would actually believe such a thing. That, okay, I have no chance if I go to Virginia state court, but if I go to Virginia federal court, I'm again fight a Virginian in that jurisdiction, everything's going to be hunky dory. It's difficult, at least for me, to conceptualize why that would make people feel more confident in the system. But apparently, it actually was that was not an uncommon perspective. Accordingly, that's the theory of diversity that gets you in here. So Alien News here is asking a question saying, well, can you try and get a diversity saying that, there's two different states, there's two different jurisdictions that are employed here. And like I said, I think that's more of a civil issue than it is a criminal issue, first and foremost. And yeah. And second of all, a far stronger approach would be the perception, the argument of an issue of federal law. They use interstate commerce to allow everything into federal. Why not this? Because that's the government. That's what who's they? They can, you cannot. It's very simple. I mean, your question answers itself as soon as you change the pronoun. Didn't you check the pronouns? It's 2024. How do you not check the pronouns of your own sentence? They use interstate commerce, and it's true. They do. Federal government uses interstate commerce as a basis to start finding crimes that don't seem like they're very much interstate, and all of a sudden start passing all these laws that seem like they're only happening in one state, and say, no, we got plenty of jurisdiction here. When I was covering the Ghislaine Maxwell trial, that's actually one of the bases that she was convicted of, that she participated, that with respect to one particular individual who never left the state, there were four victims who testified about the abuse that they suffered as a result of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. One of them never left the state of Florida. She was only 13 or so. Sad, pathetic, ridiculous situation. But she never left the state. So what was the basis to try and go after Ghislaine Maxwell in federal court with respect to that particular complainant? It was that they had sent tickets to her to go to a show, and they used interstate commerce and used DHL to send tickets from New York to Florida. They also came up with a different theory that Judge Nathan said was totally fine under the law. You can bark about it if you want, say it's unjust, but it is the law, which is if there was a primary thing of that was relevant to the commission of the crime that traveled interstate, that would be a basis to claim that you can have federal jurisdiction for a federal crime. And what did they say? She said, if you find factually the massage table was traveled interstate, the massage table where she was lured into doing what she did for Jeffrey Epstein, that if that traveled interstate, that's enough. That's enough to have interstate jurisdiction and federal jurisdiction specifically. It's pretty crazy. But who gets away with that? Who's the they? The government gets away with that. We can't say, oh, I'm interstate, now I get federal court. That's not how that's not reality. But I digress. Let's get back into this decision here. Defendant seeks leave from this court to file a second notice removal. As to good cause, he advances two grounds. First, he asserts that the New York courts were biased against him, resulting in an improper trial. This is most certainly true. Sorry. In many persons' opinions. I'm not saying mine because I would never disparage a judge. But certainly there's the appearance of impropriety, I think. As support for his argument, Trump writes that Judge Merchan had a conflict of interest in presiding over the trial, as evidenced by his daughter's statements concerning her father's views on politicians' use of Twitter, by Judge Merchan's daughter's involvement in Vice President Kamala Harris's 2019 presidential campaign, and by Judge Merchan's prior financial contributions to Democratic politicians. So here are all the indices that he was biased against Trump. Mr. Trump also states that Judge Merchan failed to conduct the proper pretrial review of the presidential immunity issue in light of intervening Supreme Court decisions, and prohibited Mr. Trump from pursuing interlocutory review of that decision. Second, Mr. Trump argues that Trump v. United States grants him immunity from prosecution. That's a federal, obviously Supreme Court, federal, so that's going to be granting him immunity. This court does not have jurisdiction to hear Mr. Trump's arguments concerning the propriety of the New York trial. So all this stuff you're saying about how he was biased and all that other stuff, we don't have the jurisdiction to review that. It's not my place. I don't have the authority, is what Judge Hallerstein is claiming, that he does not have the authority to sit in review of whether or not Judge Merchan was improperly biased. Quote, the jurisdiction possessed by the district court is strictly original. So here on the federal district court, I can only review something that comes to me in the first instance. Not someone else is dealing with something and I'm supposed to be reviewing with their work. Citing Rooker versus Fidelity Trust. District courts may not reverse or modify state judgments, even those containing constitutional infirmities, because to do so would be an exercise of appellate jurisdiction, citing Rooker as well as Hoblock v. Albany County Board of Elections. What are they saying here with this sentence? What's the point to this? Let me highlight this. Give me a second. Let me pull this up. My other format. There we go. It's a very interesting sentence that they choose that he writes. He writes here. Oh. District courts may not reverse or modify state judgments, even those containing constitutional infirmities, because to do so would be an exercise of appellate jurisdiction. What's appellate jurisdiction? Appellate jurisdiction is something happens at a lower court, and then you go up to a higher court, that lower court's boss, and they review the work that's done there, right? That's called an exercise of appellate jurisdiction. The boss is now overviewing the work of the underling. District courts are not the boss of state courts. So it's not my place, and I don't have the authority to review the work that was being done in the Supreme Court of the state of New York. I'm just the district courts. I can only handle questions that come directly to me. You can't say to me, hey, that court over there is doing something. I don't have the authority to deal with that. And I think this is actually a fair assessment. I don't think this is a reflection of bias by a judge. This is a fair assessment of a judge recognizing that I don't have that authority. It's not my place to do that. So some people might come along and tell you, look, there's the judge should intervene here, and this judge Hellerstein is saying I don't have the authority to do that. That's just not the role of this court. In that case, was discussing how federal courts generally lack jurisdiction over suits that are in essence appeals from state court judgments. Instead, the proper recourse for parties seeking to remedy alleged errors made during a state trial is to pursue a state appeal. Go up to the first department, which, good luck there. Or at the highest level, to seek review from the Supreme Court of the United States. Meaning, if you keep going up through the different levels of state court and you think that there was something wrong with their constitutional decision, eventually you can end up in Supreme Court. But you can't come here. I don't have that authority. It would be highly improper for this court to evaluate the issues of bias, unfairness, or error in the state trial. I happen to agree with him on this. I think it's right. Those are issues for the state appellate courts. Accordingly, only the second ground argument by Mr. Trump deserves attention. And we cited this. He said Trump also implicitly requested this court enjoin the state sentencing set for September 18th. For the same reasons set out in this paragraph under the Rooker-Feldman doctrine, this request is improper and outside district court's jurisdiction. I think he's right. I don't have to like the outcome to tell you that as a matter of law. I think that's a proper read of what the law is. I can only tell you what to me seems like a proper read of law, and that seems like one. So now what he's going to focus on is this thing, the second ground that Donald Trump raised. What was that second ground again? The second ground was this. Mr. Trump argues that Trump v. United States, that was the immunity decision, grants him immunity from prosecution. So he's coming to this federal court saying that's not something that the state court has a right to decide. That's why I need to go to federal court. They can't properly interpret the Supreme Court decision. That's the job of the federal court. So that's the issue that's going to be that this court is about to mull over on page 3 of this decision. In Trump, which this little italicized Trump is referring to Trump v. United States, the immunity decision, the Supreme Court held that a former president is entitled to absolute immunity from criminal prosecution for actions taken in exercise of his core constitutional powers. Okay. To at least presumptive immunity, this is the second level of immunity, for acts within the outer perimeter of his official responsibility, and to no immunity for his unofficial acts. So they break it into 3 different types of categories. It can be categorized as something that are part of his core constitutional powers, absolute immunity, outer perimeter, then you have presumptive immunity, and then you have his unofficial acts, and those get no immunity. Criminal courts trying the former president are required to evaluate his actions distinguish official from unofficial conduct in order to figure out what level of immunity attaches. The outer perimeter of the former president's official responsibility extends to those actions that are not manifestly or palpably beyond his authority. Because we're trying to figure out this middle level here. Is this part of what happened here, part of his core constitutional powers? That's not really a strong argument. The Constitution doesn't direct the President of the United States to maintain business records, right? And he's citing here that this is what in Trump they said. We have to look for things that are not manifestly or palpably beyond his authority. Private schemes with private actors unconnected to any statutory constitutional authority or function of the executive are considered unofficial acts. So if you have private schemes, and schemes doesn't have to be the nefarious word in this, it sounds like inherently a nefarious word, but if it's private activity with private actors that have nothing to do with any statutory or constitutional authority, that's an unofficial act, according to Judge Helingstein. In my order and opinion of July 19, 2023, that hush money paid to an adult film star is not related to the president's official acts. It does not reflect in any way the color of the president's official duties. My holding followed an evidentiary hearing where the people showed conclusively that Mr. Trump reimbursed Michael Cohen for advancing the hush money payments, including 2 checks signed in the White House by Mr. Trump. I held that Mr. Trump had not satisfied the burden of proof required to show the basis of removal. So in other words, I looked at this once already. And at that point, I held that he had not satisfied his burden to establish removal. My holding of a hush money reimbursement remains true, regardless of who has the burden, whether the people or Mr. Trump. Nothing in the Supreme Court's opinion affects my previous conclusion that the hush money payments were private, unofficial acts outside the bounds of executive authority. And frankly, I'm not going to kid you. It's a tough sell. This is a tough sell. You can love Trump, you could be Trump's best friend. It's a tough sell to say, and frankly, I don't think it should be framed as the payments to Stormy. The question is, because that's not really what was the crime. The crime wasn't making the payments. The crime was purportedly in how he reported it, how he recorded it in his own books. But is that part of the crime? Is that part of his core duties, or even the outer perimeter of his duties as president? When it's and I'm trying to assess this as removed from it being Donald Trump as possible. And I'm going to respectfully submit the following arguments to you for how we should look at immunity. Okay? If we're looking at an act, I'm trying to see if this is if it's in the orbit of his presidential duties. I would respectfully submit this is a great yardstick that I've never heard anyone else mention before today. That's a fair way of assessing whether or not it's within the president's, whether it's in the orbit of his official duties. If whatever activity he's doing as president is something that would be completely unsurprising to see his successor continue doing, then it seems like it's part of his orbit of presidential duties. May not be enumerated as part of what his functions and duties are, but it seems like it's in the orbit, that this is something that is the role of the president. So if he's conducting some sort of investigation into voting, okay, and that sort of issue, and after he leaves office, his successor to continue that investigation into voting, obviously he's going to investigate in different ways, take different steps, each person, according to, based on the need of the day. But the point is that he's going to continue doing that. Well, in that case, that's now seems to me like that's part of the orbit of his presidential duties. If it's maintaining your own personal books, would it not be bizarre for President A to maintain their books, and there's a question that that's the purported crime, and now President B is going to come in and maintain those same books? What? That would be bizarre. Why? Because that's his personal stratosphere. Why the hell would the next president come in and take care of their personal books? Right? It just doesn't seem like anything. I think that this is a pretty good baseline for how to determine whether or not the activity is presidential. And I understand that the next president replacing them will probably have a different agenda, especially if there's a change in administration rather than taking over for someone, a president who dies. But I'm saying, like, if we just imagine that this president would drop dead, vice president steps into the role. Would it be weird for the vice president to continue doing what is being sought, what the president was doing that he's being charged with? If it's not going to be weird, in that case, what we can look at what the first president is doing and say that's in the orbit of presidential duties. If it would be really weird, then it's certainly not in those. It certainly does not seem like it's in that orbit of presidential duties, and that's why I say Trump maintaining the records of Trump of the post office, whatever other legal entities he has there that are his own personal entities, doesn't make sense that someone else would be doing it, and hence, to me, I struggle with the argument that this is anything but personal. I'm trying to be fair in how to assess this in a way that makes sense, because you can't be looking at individuals. It clearly appears that the face and nose and exhibits attached thereto that removal should not be permitted. Good cause has not been shown. Leave to remove the case is not granted, so I'm not allowing you to remove the case in state court and bring it over here. And therefore, clerk shall terminate ECF number 48, and we're done with this. So ordered, Alvin K. Hellerstein. And I'm going to tell you right now, does not feel at all like this is tilted against Trump. Is it possible that this guy happens to hate Trump? Yeah, that's definitely possible. I don't know. Maybe he hates Trump. Maybe he's Trump's biggest fan. And the reality is, to me, this decision reads as rooted in law. So what's the next step for Donald Trump? Well, the next step is you appeal. Do I think he'll be successful in appeal? No, because I actually think the judge here, like it or not, as much as I don't think that the way things are going in state court are fair, I don't think that this court or even the Second Circuit have jurisdiction here. I don't think it's their place. Now, if there was more of an issue of a federal question, you can ask questions. I'm not sure. I don't really like the first finding that he had there. If I want to be ticky-tacky with Judge Hellerstein, I would say the fact that he's looking at this as a hush money payment, that's the crime. That's not the crime. Everyone knows that's not the crime. And to me, when I read that the first time, I was like, I'm not sure where you're coming from here on this. You held that payments in hush money to a porn star are personal. That's not what the alleged crime is. The alleged crime is bookkeeping or trying to steal an election. Wrongly trying to win an election. So, if anything, I don't know how Trump structured his motion. A better way, perhaps, to frame the motion is, why are you saying hush money payments are the crime here? That's not the conduct that's being questioned. It's whether I wrongly won an election. And it's a federal election. So your whole fixation the first time around, if you want to try and appeal this, and I was Trump's attorneys, that's how I would try and structure this. I'd be like, why are you holding on this topic at all when that's got nothing to do with what he's charged with? And it's what everyone in the media is calling it, but you're a judge. You should know better than that. The reason I think that argument probably still does not succeed is because no matter which way you try and structure this crime, it's going to be hard to get it into that orbit of presidential duties. It's a struggle. While I think that where the judge landed, Judge Hellerstein landed, with respect to his final decision, I agree with. I just don't like the way he got there, in the sense that I think he's fixating on what the crime is, and it's not even a crime. What he's fixating as being a crime. He should be focusing on what crimes were actually charged and whether those crimes that were charged that he purportedly violated or he was purportedly 34 verdicts on were those related to his presidential duties. And those are supposedly not the payments to Stormy Daniels. So my point is, I'm not really crazy with how Judge Hallerstein got there. And perhaps if someone wants to be cynical, they can try and read into his motivations that ended up getting him there. I'm simply saying if I was the judge, I think there's a pretty good chance I would have ended up in the same place. I just would have gone through a slightly different analysis, rooted far more in the charges rather than hush money payments. So that's my thoughts on this. The next step is going to go Second Circuit and then try and go to Supreme Court. I am very doubtful, very, very doubtful that he will win in the Second Circuit. And in fact, I'll tell you right now, I'd be shocked if he won in the Second Circuit. I'll go so far as to tell you he's not going to win on the Second Circuit. And I'll take it one step further and tell you I don't think the Supreme Court's going to grant certiorari. I don't think they're going to stick their nose in this. I think they want to stay away from this. I don't think that they're going to grant cert. I don't think that this direction is going to work for Trump. That's my personal take. So we covered this already. Barrett Boy says if Obama gets immunity for targeting and killing U.S. citizens, all presidents have absolute immunity precedent. Well, the argument is, what was he doing? Why did he end up killing them? If he ended up killing them because he's trying to, root out terrorism, that's where you get your absolute immunity. You can't let your personal feelings about a particular president, either pro or against, cloud your perspective as to what makes sense as far as a concept. Otherwise, we're engaging in the same partisan politics that the left is, and that's not how you have a healthy republic. You have to sort of set rules that make sense that will be applied equally to both, even if you feel frustrated that the other side is not applying it equally. Joe, I still say you're so fetch. Make fetch happen. Thank you. I am pretty, and people like me. There you go. Lady Lawgic likes me. Yeah, and you haven't even seen how good my fantasy football team is. Oh boy, you're gonna like me. I did well. Thank God. Oh, speaking of which, I want to mention to you all, tomorrow I have another fantasy football draft. That one takes place at 9:30 in the evening, which means I'm not going to be streaming tomorrow. So I'm giving you that heads up now. I will not be streaming tomorrow evening. I may do a locals tomorrow, but I'm not going to be streaming tomorrow evening. That's my heads up to you, the listening audience. Buried in the middle, buried halfway through a stream. So that everyone will see it. Everyone will see it. Of course. What do you mean? How did you know? Why did you think I was going to be here? I said it clearly. I assume that much like you as a citizen are required to know all laws, and ignorance of the law is not an excuse, so too, ignorance of my schedule is not an excuse. All right. Let's do it. I mean, we have a lot of. I plan on having a lot of fun with this debate. This is the debate. The debate. Trump is feared and Kamala isn't presidential. Vinny Oshana versus Cenk Uygur with a couple of other side folk. Yeah. Look at his face. Look at his face. He just he looks like he was like caught sitting on the throne. Forgot to lock the door and caught sitting on the throne. Yeah. Good times with Cenk Uygur. Am I wrong? Is that an unfair read? Does not look like someone just opened the door? He's like, oh, like I just realized I forgot to lock the door. But wasn't Trump just paying his lawyer for work done in the White House? Oh, I didn't get into the merits of the case. I'm telling you right now, the way the case was handled is a ridiculous failure of law in one way after another. I've gone over that time and again. I don't think the verdicts are justifiable. I think the verdicts, I think that they're an abomination of injustice. I think the charges are ridiculous. I think the way the case was handled was ridiculous. I think the fact that Judge Merchan stayed on the case is insane. I think some of the ways, I think the gag order, well, you know what I think of the freaking gag order. I think I can't even understand it. I'm literally fighting against it with my own flesh and my own fingers clacking away here on a keyboard. And I think that the jury charges and instruction, I think some of the decisions he made during the course of that were baffling, mind-boggling. I couldn't believe the way he implemented the gag order, where he's like, I'm not going to tell you what you're allowed to say. I'm just going to punish you after the fact when you say it. Even if you're asking me and say, I don't know how to interpret your rule, I think my rule is clear. So, and then when you violate it, so, and then saying it, when in doubt, say just avoid doing it, which is clearly designed to chill his free speech. And then the jury, and one decision after another, the way he dealt with one of Trump's witnesses was just something that most attorneys have never seen a judge do. And then the jury instructions, oh my God. I mean, they literally make no sense. I mean, no sense at all. They make no sense in the sense that he says, so if you find that he violated, that he kept these business records and that they were fraudulently put in here for the purposes of winning of wrongfully winning an election. How's he wrongfully trying to win an election? Well, it could be any of three different crimes, and you pick which crime it is. And even though I'm not going to tell you what the elements of those other crimes are, if you feel in your gut that they violated crime, in that case, it's good to convict him. And you don't all have to agree on what crime it was. Some of you might think it was crime A, some of you might think it's crime B, which is astonishing violation of fairness. Astonishing violation that he had no idea which activity he did that was purportedly illegal. How can he possibly defend himself? And worse yet, today we have 34 convictions issued by that New York jury, and we don't know that there was unanimity by them on any one of them. Because he said, some of you might think he was wrongful and violated Rule A. Some of you might think Rule B. Some of you might think Rule C. That's okay. As long as you all agree it was wrongful, you can convict him. What? There's different mens rea issues. There's different intent issues. There's different elements. He didn't even walk through what the elements of various of those crimes were. Someone could be like, yeah, I think that's a crime. I mean, it was just an astonishing abortion of law. It was an embarrassment. Everything about those convictions are not a poor reflection on Donald Trump. It's a poor reflection on the New York judiciary and on our New York District Attorney Office. Everything about it. Everything. Terrible, terrible, terrible ridiculousness, which could only be interpreted as hyperpartisanship by any reasonable individual. There's no other way to read it. It was an embarrassment. As a New York attorney, I was embarrassed by many of the findings of law that were reached in this case. Okay, I struggle with it, and I felt as if like I threw 25 years of my life into the New York judiciary, and then when it's being held up to the light in front of the entire world, it fell flat on its face and looked like a clown show. There's so many terrible decisions, one terrible decision after another, in ways that would astonish you, and the most logical conclusion is that it was predetermined. At least for me, it's difficult for me to refute anyone claiming that this was a predetermined outcome, that they were going to find him guilty. Anyone can speculate as to why that would be in a very liberal state like New York. So, yeah, those convictions are a joke. They're not at all a stain on Donald Trump's record. Sorry, not convictions, verdicts. 0 convictions so far. Those 34 verdicts are a joke. And they're not at all a stain on Donald Trump, even if they get converted into convictions. They're not all a reflection on him. If anything, it further embarrasses the New York State judiciary. So. And yes, I do think he was paying him. The evidence, the guy literally changed his story up on the stand and was shown was proven to have lied on the stand to the jury. I didn't even mention that in my whole assessment of that. It was an abortion. I did a live reading of his testimony where he's literally changing his story. Oh yeah, I guess I was wrong about that. He's exposed that what he told the jury, that he had a conversation with Donald Trump, could not possibly have happened when he claimed it happened. And then he admitted, well, maybe it was some other time. I mean, after admitting on the stand that he was an admitted perjurer, then he got up there and perjured himself again on the stand. The only person who is able to try and attach mens rea to Donald Trump. I mean, it was an abortion. It was embarrassing for every element of New York. It was embarrassment for New York juries. I had hopes that they would actually recognize how stupid this looks, but no. I gave too much credit. Anyhow, with that, let's get into the debate.
The other side's like, oh my God, everybody's the enemy. So go ahead, run
Oh, I'm not saying everyone's the enemy. I would say you're the enemy.
your mouth about Kamala Harris, but at the end of the day, Donald Trump's still a lunatic.
Emily's a Jewish girl, and she mentioned the strength through joy was 100% hijacked.
All right,
Pretend that Kamala Harris is anything more than a middling vice president with dubious credentials for the highest office in the land. But almost overnight, she's been manufactured into a cultural phenomenon and a visionary. Most of all, she's apparently a harbinger of joy.
The one
Harbinger of joy. Kamala Harris, that's their newest shtick, is that this is the era of joy. Joy. It's joy. We're all about joy.
One thing that I will not forgive them for is their try to steal the joy from this country.
Try to steal the joy from this country.
Joy felt by Americans backing the Harris-Walz ticket.
We are joyful warriors. Being joyful is part of the American identity.
The joy factor.
Campaign of joy. You're talking about radical joy.
It is downright joyful.
it looks like
It tries so hard. It's like, how do you not recognize that you look like a parrot by all of a sudden introducing this word?
a joyous rally. It looks like a joyous occasion.
A real zeal and joy in the campaign.
The joy that you're bringing back to the country.
Joyful, exuberant rally.
Thank you for bringing back the joy.
Power of joy.
Hope and joy.
Something incredibly joyful.
She does it all with a sense of joy.
Joy. Joy.
Joy.
Joy.
Joy.
Joy.
Joy.
Joy. Joy.
Joy. Joy.
Imagine that. American politics.
Oh, the joy. Why am I not feeling quite so joyful? Why do none of them look that joyful as they said all that? The same battery of commentators, strategists, and grandees who conspired to oust the actual president of the United States, Joe Biden, are now working equally ardently over time to ensure that they get
Even Simon knows that they're the most joyless people. Simon going incognito as Tomcat.
to choose the next one. Will the American people swallow all this enforced joy? Can Harris withstand the scrutiny
You will feel
that comes
joy.
with the home straight of a presidential campaign?
You will feel
Will she
joy.
simply dodge that scrutiny altogether after 40 days without an interview or a press conference? This is how she answered the easiest, most predictable question of all when she finally sat down with CNN.
If you are elected, what would you do on day one in the White House?
Well, there are a number of things. I will tell you, first and foremost, one of my highest priorities is to do what we can to support and strengthen the middle class. When I look at the aspirations, the goals, the ambitions of the American people, I think that
It's like such a word salad. It sounds like a 10th grader reading a speech about America.
people are ready for a new way forward, in a way that generations of Americans have been fueled by hope and by optimism.
Oh, come on, Kamala. What does all that mean? It's just word salad. Regardless of your politics, it's not an answer to an obvious question. If Kamala's first command to her team from behind the Resolute desk is do what you can to support the middle class, America's in big trouble.
Big trouble.
What her campaign is doing successfully is somehow managing to distance Harris from everything she's ever said or done, particularly in the administration in which she has served as vice president. She's apparently flipped positions on everything from the border wall to abolishing private health insurance.
It was good enough that even Matt Walsh stole it, didn't credit me. Stole it and didn't credit me. He aired it on his show. He did.
Using electric car mandates, defunding the police, and banning fracking. None of it seems to matter. The message is clear. Kamala Harris is shiny, new, and nothing to do with what's happened before, either under Joe Biden or what's come out of her own mouth.
A new way forward and turn the page on the last decade of what I believe has been contrary to.
She was like constantly frowning when she's trying to answer a question.
Where the spirit of our country really lies.
But the last decade, of course, the last 3.5 years has been part of your administration.
It's
I'm
you!
about an era.
You're the problem. It's you. It's you. So I'm going to change everything, but I'm not flip-flopping. I'm going to change everything about what we've been doing. Not flip-flopping.
You've literally been in charge for nearly 4 years of that 10 years. This is your era. And I use that pronunciation very deliberately. This woman was the vice president of the United States.
Oh, he was saying error.
Is the vice president of the United States. There's actually a president who's on the beach somewhere. Well, the cabal, which united to force her boss into retirement, meanwhile, is still barely able to contain its glee.
The person who should be applauded is the president who did the most selfless thing that anybody's done since George Washington.
Oh my God. Oh my God. So when Obama threatened him with the 25th Amendment, which everyone knows is exactly what happened, it's been reported over and over again that Obama threatened him with the 25th Amendment. The Atlantic reported it. So that's selflessness. Saving his own neck is selflessness. That's how much the left is desperately trying to gaslight you. Saving your own neck from humiliation is selflessness. And the fact that Obama threatened that, Nancy, Chuck, and Barry together threatened that, means that they're perfectly happy to abuse process, because either he needs to be removed or because he is incompetent. The 25th Amendment is to remove someone for being incapacitated, either physically or mentally, and they basically threaten, we're going to call you mentally unfit to serve. So what does that mean? Would it be a true claim? Would it be a false claim? And if you're saying that if it's a true claim, why the heck are you leaving him there now? And if you're saying it's a false claim, that means you're willing to basically lie to get whatever political agenda you want. And clowns like this joker over here get up and basically say that he was selfless, rather than actually calling out the left for their ridiculous abuse, because that's tyrannical. That's a coup right there. And saying, we're the ones who are in charge. You're not the one in charge, President, Mr. President. We're the ones who are in charge here.
And that's true.
No,
whatever.
People make their own decisions.
Absolutely, they do.
Even Nancy's laughing at that idea that he made his own decision.
Absolutely, they do. And I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for what you didn't do.
I want to point out, I'm not citing the Atlantic as being a bastion of truth. What I'm saying is you're correct. They did bring us that hoax. They brought us Suckers and Losers hoax because they're very strongly left-leaning. And despite being so left-leaning, they're the ones who admitted that this is what the left did to President Biden. They admitted that this is what Barack, Nancy, and Chuck did to Joe Biden. So if your own side is admitting it, that's my point. That's why it's far more significant than if it was some conspiracy claim from the right. It's the left admitting it.
Extraordinary, isn't it? I mean, it was George Clooney with his op-ed in the New York Times and Nancy Pelosi, who apparently said to Biden, we can do this the easy way or the hard way, but you're out, sunshine. It was those two who led the campaign to get rid of him. They were the Brutuses to the Caesar. And yet now they want us to think this guy's the greatest guy since sliced bread. Greatest is Washington, the first president of the United States, the founder of the United States, the man that many Americans think was the greatest president. Is that how anyone views Joe Biden? A man who, before he could even serve a second term, had to be bullied and shamed and humiliated out of his position as the nominee for 2024 by his own team, by his own people? There's a lot to call out about Kamala Harris and her campaign. In my view, the Trump campaign also has its problems. It's yet to regain its footing and confidence that it had when Biden was the nominee. Let's be clear, Trump destroyed Biden at that debate and was heading for an easy victory if Biden had stayed in the race. It's not quite so certain or easy now. But there's a cautionary note here for Democrats too. The last time Trump took on a woman who appeared to be surging in the polls, with the same George Clooney slamming him from a press conference at a movie festival, things didn't quite work out the way everyone expected. It may feel like it began 100 years ago, but the real race for the President of the United States begins now. Well, joining me now to debate all this, the Young Turks founder, Cenk Uygur, the former White House Communications Director, Anthony Scaramucci, broadcaster and journalist Emily Austin, and from the PBD podcast, the commentator and self-professed angry patriot, Vinny Ashana. Welcome to all of you. Wow, I've been away for 3 weeks or so. All hell as normal has broken loose because all hell breaks loose every week in this race.
I didn't get her name. What was her name? She's Emily who? Oh, Emily Austin. Broadcaster and journalist Emily Austin. Okay.
All hell as normal has broken loose because all hell breaks loose every week in this race. Anthony Scaramucci, great to have you on Uncensored. We've spoken many times over the last few.
He became the ultimate bitter loser. You're going to see his money. Hey, cut it out. Quit it. You over there.
Years about all things American.
Saturday Night Live did a phenomenal spoof of him where, who is that woman, that heavyset woman who I think is the one, she wasn't quite as heavy back then when she was playing Anthony Scaramucci, picking up a podium, and I think it was her, picking up a podium and threatening the media in the press conference room while chewing on like a whole bunch of while chewing like wads of gum.
Politics. You posted on October the 1st, don't be surprised if Donald Trump drops out of the race. Nearly 10 million people viewed that post. Do you stand by it? And if you do, will you accept a $1,000 bet from me right now that Trump isn't going to pull out?
Well, I'll bet you $1,000 on the election. I don't know if I'm going to bet on the pullout. I mean, he's got to drop more substantially in the polls. You know, he's down 6 with the likely voters. If she opens up a lead, 12.
I don't know what polls he's seeing.
12 to 15 points. He's not going to want to lose to her. He's the worst presidential candidate for the Republicans since Herbert Hoover. He's lost the House, the Senate, and the presidency. And if DeSantis or Nikki Haley was running against Kamala Harris, they'd probably be up 10 or 15. So,
absolutely not. This guy is so utterly clueless. Absolutely not. I'll tell you right now, if it was Nikki Haley, I would be championing Kamala Harris over Nikki Haley. I would take Kamala Harris over Nikki Haley. Absolutely not. No Republicans would show up. What a complete and utter moron this. What a moronic statement.
We'll have to see. But on likely voters, he's already down 6. And I like her momentum. I understand all the issues that you're raising related to her. But unfortunately, there's only 2 choices. There's him and her. And I think I would implore people to read H.R. McMaster's book if they get a chance, because he's very honest and very objective.
Very objective, like Anthony Scaramucci, a type of
about the insanity that is Donald Trump.
I mean, Anthony,
very objective.
If I'd asked you
$1,000 on the election, I got Kamala. You can take
I'll
the
tell you
orange
what,
man if you
we'll
want,
make it for charity.
I'm done on that.
We'll
vote.
make it for charity.
What's that?
I'll take that bet. I still think Trump's going to
Okay.
win. I'm not an American citizen. I don't have a vote. I don't have a horse in the race.
Okay.
I just think reality is going to kick in. And if I asked you, Anthony, before we move to the others, if I'd asked you even 2 months ago, do you think Kamala Harris would make a great president of the United States? You would have laughed out loud. Be honest.
Again, there's two choices in the race. I know I don't want to go back to what we had. I think it was a unmitigated disaster. He embarrassed me by supporting him, and he's actually an embarrassment on the world stage. And he doesn't even understand things like the nuclear triad. The guy is a walking disaster, and so I will take her over him. But you're right. If there were other candidates available, if you were available, Piers, you're not over 35 yet, but if you were an American citizen and over 35, I would take you.
See, this is why
we've only got two choices.
This is really why I wanted you on the program, because I knew that you would flatter me in a way that I would find irresistible. Emily Austin. So look, Kamala Harris was nobody's choice, even on the Democrat side, to be president of the United States 2 months ago. Suddenly, she's apparently the great, fresh, new thing, despite the fact that she's been Biden's vice president for nearly 4 years. How can she continue to execute this tripwire of pretending she's not responsible or accountable for everything that's gone on in this administration?
The answer is that she can't. You know, there's only so long you could portray this facade that you have everything figured out. But what I hope to see happen sooner than later, because the clock is ticking, is for the emotions to be removed from this election. Kamala could run her Ren and Stimpy, happy joy.
And I think that the Democrats are hoping that there's not enough clock for that to run out. I think that's what they're really praying for.
Joy campaign all she wants, which sounds strikingly similar to Hitler's strength through joy, but I'm not even going to get into that. But at some point, which will happen likely in this debate, is her policies have to be questioned. She can run on the joy campaign. Trump is the policy president. He addresses it head on, whether it's easy or hard. Kamala can't even face the media. Her pre-taped lied to be what was a live interview on CNN. She couldn't even do it without her babysitter nearby. And she's an embarrassment to the country. And it's not because she's a woman, and it's not because she's a woman of color. I'm sure she's a lovely woman. And as a celebrity, she's quite entertaining.
I'm sure she's not a lovely woman.
But presidentially, she would embarrass us on a global stage. She's embarrassing us domestically, and it would be disastrous. Everything he just said about Trump, I believe the same to Kamala Harris.
All right, Chick Uga, she's an embarrassing disaster. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, this whole thing's been preposterous. Kamala Harris is a very standard, normal politician. And
meaning she has no policies at all? Very standard? That's very standard, very normal?
You guys are ignoring the 800-pound gorilla in the room, which is that Donald Trump is a lunatic.
And this is what I only saw the first 15, 20 minutes of this, but from what I saw, this is pretty much the whole argument that Trump is evil, Trump is evil, Trump is evil, which is not anything. I mean, okay. I think that America's kind of tired of that, personally.
So you guys are having this conversation. This normal politician, oh my God, she might not be good enough. Wow, she's running with joy. That sounds like Hitler. All these kind of loony things that you guys are all saying. When the other guy...
This is the idiot who's always screaming about dog whistles, that he hears dog whistles that Trump's giving. All the time, this guy is panting and breathing and barking about the dog whistles that he hears from the right. And when you hear strength, when you hear joy, you're pretending you don't know what strength through joy is. It's really? Okay. And he's pretending that that's lunatic. This is the idiot he's always the one who's screaming dog whistles. When they say 1776, they know what they're trying to call for is that they're basically saying they want to have a revolutionary war. 3%ers, the oath keepers, because keeping your oath is a racist. It's a racist thing because everyone knows that that's what white people do is they keep their oath or what. I don't know what the hell he's trying to say, but it's a dog whistle. It's a dog whistle. Everyone knows. It's obvious. It's obvious. Obviously. And now he's sitting here pretending he doesn't know what that joy is a Nazi reference. What they used for the Jungerrein, that they basically said that they ran their camps to raise the H youth, that they were constantly promoting strength through joy. Or joy through strength?
He's a lunatic. He thinks we should terminate the Constitution. He thinks that all of our crowds are AI created images. He believes absolutely insane things.
That's first and foremost. He never wants to terminate the Constitution, and no one thinks that he's going to terminate the Constitution.
Thought that his vice president deserved to be murdered by his supporters, and we're having a
He never said that once. Not once. When did he ever say that?
nonsense conversation about Kamala Harris running with joy being a bad thing. And guys, there's a lot of reasons that she does that, but one of the reasons is to juxtapose the hatred from the other side, which you guys are amply displaying.
Oh my God! Oh my God! Everything related to Trump or his supporters has been railed against as being the worst domestic threat to this country, and you're sitting here saying that she strength through joy, the joy of crushing people we disagree with, the joy of canceling people who we disagree with, censoring them, getting them fired from jobs if they don't go along with the program and take whatever medications we want to give them. Yeah, okay.
The other side's like, oh my God, everybody's the enemy. The immigrants are the enemy. The Democrats are the enemy. Oh, they're killing babies after they're born. All these lunatic talk. So go ahead, run your mouth about Kamala Harris. But at the end of the day, Donald Trump's still a lunatic. And the country doesn't want an unstable madman like that who doesn't even believe in America. He thinks we should terminate our Constitution. He had no problem trampling our democracy. I'm not letting that clown come in here and destroy this country.
All right, Vinny Oshana. He's a clown who'll destroy the country, an 800-pound gorilla. This is apparently these are the nice guys spreading joy.
Way to call that out.
Yeah,
Oh, you
listen,
guys are super nice.
I have to say this.
You're sitting here saying you're the other side is the other side of hate, and you're sitting here with your hatred. He doesn't even realize he's so lacking in any self-awareness. And Piers just called him out on that. You're sitting here like a lunatic screaming about how the other side is evil.
Piers, Emily, you kind of brushed over it, love, and I think you should have stayed on it. Emily's a Jewish girl, and she mentioned the strength through joy was 100% hijacked from the Nazis. It was in 1933. I have to read this, Emily. Hold on one second, guys.
Totally
I actually want to read this because Emily's right.
Total insanity.
He's so angry. He's joyfully angry. He's joyfully angry.
Hold on, Cenk. I didn't interrupt you. The Nazi labor campaign of 1933, that's it. It was set up as a tool to promote the advantages of Nazism. So whoever's coming up with this joy campaign, they should do a little bit more research. And you know what? Instead of going...
Here's the thing. They did do the research. They knew.
Trump and talking about I don't know, Anthony. I know Cenk, and I respect Cenk. We disagree politically, but let's talk about the actual State of the Union right now, Piers. I don't know if you guys have been paying attention, but an American Jewish hostage was murdered by Hamas. That just happened a couple of days ago. And also, the Hells Angels are en route right now to Aurora, Colorado, to stop a Venezuelan brutal gang, and the gang is called Tren Aragua because they've taken over apartment complexes.
Now, they have taken over the apartment complexes. I saw this earlier, and I actually looked this up, and the Aurora police claim that it's not true, that the Hells Angels are not actually showing up. But Venezuelan gangs have taken over apartment complexes in Aurora, Colorado.
They're sex trafficking women. They're doing drugs. The FBI is not doing nothing. The mayor's not doing nothing. The governor's not doing anything. Why is all this happening? You know why? Because Joe Biden is on vacation. He's still on vacation. 40% of his administration. Kamala Harris is in a just.
I see some people arguing in the chat as to whether or not the Hells Angels story is true. I'll Google it for you right now. You'll see that there's one report after another saying that it's not true. Now, this was a day ago, and these reports were or 2 days ago, this interview. Hells Angels. Cops don't think they're coming. No, the Hells Angels didn't come. Aurora police dismiss rumors of Hells Angels. Hells Angels heading to Aurora, Colorado to fight. Let's see. What is that? On Saturday, there was this claim. But they found no evidence of a gang takeover. I don't know when you say no evidence of gang takeover when there's one report after another about the Venezuelan gangs. I'm not saying there is no gang members. See, this is where I don't know if I can trust the police. They've not taken over the complex, really? The complex was condemned and there was all these different issues about... there's literally video of the gangs running through there with their guns out. Yeah, I don't know. Something weird is happening in Aurora. But at least the police in Aurora, their official statement is Hell's Angels ain't coming. Be interesting to see.
Going around with her support human being, who's actually running the country right now? Everybody's worried about the future and Trump, and he's such a threat to democracy. Why did he do all that stuff in the 4 years that he was here? I'm genuinely curious. All this threat and all these problems. Name one thing that was, oh my God, a threat to democracy. What was it? And what is Kamala going to do?
January
I want Anthony
6th.
and Cenk to tell me
Fake
what's
electors
one
scheme.
thing. Hold on. What's one thing you're...
Fake electors scheme is not a threat to democracy. It's actually something that's been employed. Alternate slave electors have been employed before, and democracy stood just fine. And it's not like they were secretly trying to fool anyone. So that's definitely not a threat to democracy.
Kamala, people are going to vote for Kamala for it. Anthony, just random. What are you going to vote for Kamala Harris for?
Okay,
I'm
look,
genuinely curious.
Vinny,
What are you going to vote for Kamala Harris? What are you voting for?
you've asked lots of questions there. I would say clearly what happened personally on January the 6th was an attack on democracy. You know, when a very large mob of people attack the Capitol and start calling for lawmakers to be hung because they're trying to reverse an election decision, that's an attack on democracy. You can spin it any way you like, but it is. But Anthony, but let me ask Anthony the second part of that, because I'm sure he would say the same. Very interesting question Vinny raised there. Who is running the United States? You know, I felt very strongly when Kamala Harris effectively sailed through as the nominee. It was clearly a party machinery operation to get her the nomination as fast as possible. Would it not have been better for America if the vice president of the United States in that situation?
Yeah, I disagree with him. I don't see how you take it that way. I mean, anyone who was actually participating, from what I saw, was frustrated with the lack of transparency of integrity. No one there thought that they were going to stop. They wanted to time out and stop them from proceeding, but not with having certification on that day. But nobody thought that they were going to take over the building and now the country is in the hands of MAGA.
Who's now the official nominee, actually replaced Joe Biden as president of the United States. It's very, very odd as a non-American who loves the country, has a home there. I was there for several weeks in August, to see endless pictures of Joe Biden on the beach and Kamala Harris meeting world leaders. It's very odd. It's strange. It doesn't seem to make any sense. Do you think it's right and proper what we're seeing now?
Well, listen, what I think is right and proper is actually never going to happen. I have to deal with the world the way it is.
But what do you think is right and proper?
But
that implies you agree with me.
To answer Vinny's issue, okay, I don't like seeing what's happening in Aurora, Colorado, but I saw Donald Trump in this situation.
But Trump. Everything's going to hell in America under Kamala. But I don't like the way Trump was talking in those meetings.
And I understand the mechanisms of his personality and the impetuosity and the lack of curiosity and no executive management skills. And to what Cenk is saying, I would take a more...
I see, that's your word. That's your word. But we have to look at the results. And the results under Trump were phenomenal until we got bushwhacked by COVID. And we look at the results under Kamala and Joe Biden, and they're disastrous. So you're sitting here saying that you don't like the process. Well, the results are what everyone else can see. And what you saw about the process, nobody gives the slightest damn about.
A garden variety politician who will follow the rules-based society. I don't want somebody that's currying favor with dictators. I don't want somebody that's going to roll back NATO. I don't want somebody that's going to let...
Really? Why? Why do we need NATO? Why? Someone walk me through it.
Let Vladimir Putin walk into the Ukraine. So that's That's me. That's what.
Why are we better off fighting with Vladimir Putin? Why is that the state of affairs for the indefinite next several centuries? Why is that the healthy way forward? So stupid.
What makes America great?
Can we challenge?
We don't know what the heck makes America great, clearly.
On that.
That actually doesn't answer Vinny's question.
Emily, I'll come to you. But actually, hang on. Just on that.
No, what policies does she have that you like?
Point, Anthony. All I would say is this:
saying not Donald Trump is not saying why you like Kamala.
Trump didn't go into war with anyone in his 4 years, whatever you think of him. Putin didn't invade Ukraine or anywhere else on Trump's watch.
Okay.
I
don't want to stop
those
because
things
it's your show.
Those things, they're just facts. And when it comes to rolling back NATO, I watched and listened very carefully, given that my country is part of NATO, to what Trump actually said. He wanted other member countries of NATO to pay their due. He was sick and tired of America having to pay the vast majority of the costs of NATO and other countries not paying their due. And by the way, hang on.
Piers very clearly he prefers Trump. There's no question. He very much wants Trump to win.
By the way, on that, he was 100% right. And many of those countries he castigated are now paying significantly more towards the cost of NATO as a result of what Trump did. So on those 2 points,
I heard also.
I'm not so sure that you're on good ground.
Well, I think you got to give me a chance to respond, because this is what Trump does. He says two contrary things at the same time. His detractors hold on to one thing. His people that
you mean like he says stuff like, I'm not changing anything about my values. I'm changing everything about what we're doing, and I'm looking through the same values. Has he said that? Has he said, "Oh, okay, let's build a wall now"? Oh, okay, as he mirrored his opponent's views? It's like, what are you talking about?
Love them, hold on to another thing is advocates. And so he made it very clear to John Bolton. He made it very clear to General Kelly, Jim Mattis, Rex Tillerson that he wanted out of NATO. He made it very clear. He slowed down the arms shipments to the Ukraine. In 1994.
Oh, he held off on the payment of money. And that was actually reported that it was a signature of something authorizing. And it's not clear exactly what happened as to why that happened. So that's actually a very cloudy story, which came up in the first impeachment.
We cut a deal with them. They were the sixth largest nuclear arsenal in the world. We got the nukes back in exchange.
Now the sixth largest arsenal in the world belongs to the Taliban, courtesy of Joe Biden.
For security guarantees, he slowed down the arms shipments. There's irrefutable fact to that, a result of which gave Vladimir Putin an opening in the Ukraine.
Vladimir Putin didn't invade while he was there. So what the heck are you talking about? They'd gotten all the shipments before Vladimir Putin went in there, before he left office. And they didn't go in until well after he left office. So what are you talking about? He's so untilt as far as being factually inaccurate that he's doesn't make any sense.
Moreover, he moved the embassy. The State Department asked him not to move the embassy in Jerusalem. He moved the embassy in Jerusalem.
That was a promise made by Clinton. It was a promise made by George Bush. It was a promise made by Barack Obama that they were going to move the embassy to Jerusalem. All of them did. All of them promised that. Trump's the only one who actually delivered on it. But now you're going to claim that moving the embassy and keeping his promise, that was bad. Okay.
And you can't tell me that didn't lead to more funding for Hamas, because we know from our intelligence agencies that it did.
What are you talking about? How did that lead to funding for Hamas? How did moving the embassy lead to funding for Hamas? Connect those dots for us, clown.
So we can pretend that he didn't start any wars, but he doesn't understand the nature of the world. The State
This is a dude who literally understands nothing about how the world operates.
Department told him, "Don't go to North Korea."
He's so clueless that he thinks that if Nikki Haley was the candidate, that she'd have a 15-point lead.
Yeah, the guy's never given up his nukes. He said, no, I'm Donald Trump, the supreme narcissist. I'm going to North Korea. He's going to give up his nukes. Did he give up his nukes, Piers? This is insanity that we're talking about a guy that is this intellectually bereft running the country. So you gotta.
But let me ask you, okay. But before I go to Emily to respond to that,
things out there
hang
at the
on.
same
But
time,
before I go to Emily,
he wants that. He's been very honest about it.
This is an idiot who thinks Trump's pulling out of the race. He actually tweeted that out. Like, I don't know how you literally tweeted that out.
Yeah. Okay, but here's a tough question for you before I go to Emily to respond. If you're Vladimir Putin or you're Kim Jong-un or you're President Xi.
This is Anthony, the white scrawny dude there, who weighs in at a very solid 5'2", 120 pounds, is slightly bigger than my 10-year-old daughter, and he also is a former press secretary for Trump. Then Trump got rid of him, and he's been whining about it for the last 7 years.
Who are you going to be more or less intimidated by, Donald Trump or Kamala Harris?
Trump.
There's no question, Kamala Harris. It's not even close because.
Oh, what a doofus! Even Cenk said Trump. Look at that. Trump's like, obviously Trump. And he's like, no question, Kamala Harris. Oh, that's great.
Vladimir Putin or you're Kim Jong-un or you're President Xi. Who are you going to be more or less intimidated by, Donald Trump or Kamala Harris?
Trump.
There's no question, Kamala Harris. It's not even close because he wants to be them. He praises them. He solicits them. He tells Putin from a microphone like this, go ahead and invade the countries that are not spending 2% on NATO. You heard him say that. It's not me saying
but I knew
it.
what he meant by
No
that.
question.
I knew what he meant. What he meant was if the member countries of NATO don't pay their dues, it is more likely that people like Putin will take advantage. That's what he meant. You know that.
It's
I know
a 2016 analysis, Piers. Your analysis is a 2016 analysis. He dupes people. He says two things at the same time that are quite contradictory.
All right, let me bring
very fine people on both sides.
Let me bring in Emily.
I feel like if I could reach across the screen there and just like beep his nose, we would hear like honk honk. Even Cenk is like Trump.
He denounces the Nazis.
Emily, you were holding your face in utter
I know
horror.
the playbook, Piers. I've been around it for a decade.
Okay, I saw Emily hold her head in horror as you said that the world's dictators will be more intimidated by Kamala Harris.
No question, because she's going to be with NATO.
Donald Trump has the spinal cord and the international respect that Biden in a million years can never achieve. Donald Trump had every world leader afraid of him. He just said, Anthony, that Donald Trump should not, excuse me, let me speak. You just said Donald Trump should not have gone to North Korea. If this man has international respect and can go build bridges overseas, he has every single right and a duty as our leader to do so. Let me tell you something about Donald Trump. Like him or not, he is feared. And that is what we need when the world has gone mad and you have Putin's invading Ukraine and you have Hamas's attacking Israel and kidnapping 7 Americans that Biden failed, including, like Vinny just said, Hersh Goldberg, Poland, being murdered with Hamas posting a video. And what is Biden's response? Netanyahu didn't do enough. Biden's only response should have been, Hamas will pay the price. Biden should have been more present, not on a beach, using Hersh's poor parents as political tools at the DNC, pretending he cares about the American hostages, not relaxing in Delaware. They should have been more pressure on Iran to put pressure on the proxies, more negotiations with Qatar. Instead, he's this weak leader. But you know what? I want to pause for a moment. I'm blaming Joe Biden. I actually want to criticize the puppeteers that are controlling him because I genuinely believe he has one foot in the grave. And that actually goes to a bigger problem, which is the entire Democratic Party. We don't know who's in charge. It is not Joe Biden, and it is surely as hell not Kamala Harris. So it goes back to Pierce's question, who is running the show, and how come we as the American people are not so outraged that this weakness is causing mass chaos, not just here, but all around the world? America is next. The West is the target.
I never heard of this one before, but she's spitting facts.
Middle East is laughing at us right now because we have no leadership. Donald Trump would never let that happen.
Okay,
people respected him and people feared him, and I don't care if you like him or not. That doesn't matter when you vote.
Let me bring in Cenk, who's been waiting with unusual patience, it has to be said. I put it down to you must have had a summer break of some.
Being more intimidated by his double entendre, of course. Of course, Trump. But many Islamic nations will refuse to work with Kamala, and she'd be more prone to press the big red button. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Descriptions calmed you a little bit. But be honest with me, Cenk.
Of course.
Do you really believe that when it comes to standing up to world leaders like Kim Jong-un, like Putin, like Xi and others, do you really believe that Kamala Harris is somebody that will exude an air on behalf of the United States that will be more intimidating to those guys than Trump would?
She can't even exude an air of confidence when talking to her friend Dana Bash. She can't even manage to look confident in a scripted interview. She's going to look confident when she goes up against Xi. She goes up against Putin. Are you? Who actually believes that?
It's not even close. Absolutely. And I'll tell you why. You guys are looking at it. It's like all of this foreign policy's emotional vibes in the room. And Kamala Harris walks in and are they like, oh my God, I'm intimidated. Or, oh, it's no big deal. And Trump walks in, they're like, oh my God, I fear him. No, it's about what you're willing to do, your actions, your policies, etc. So what does Kamala Harris have? Kamala Harris has the might of the administrative state and the U.S. military behind her.
Ah, here we go. It's all about the state. We don't need a president. We just need the state. That's what he's basically saying. You don't need a president. You just need a state. Like a classic socialist. Like a classic socialist. What's with the president? No, we have the state. Oh, hell, it's the state. It's the state. Unbelievable.
And they know she's stable and she represents the general American establishment. Now,
no, she doesn't seem stable at all. She seems lacking in any confidence whatsoever, even in a friendly interview.
A lot of people might say, hey, I don't love the establishment, etc., but it is a fearsome entity. And everybody knows that a normal president.
Fearsome entity that looks utterly incompetent. No, everyone saw what happened in Afghanistan. Did you miss what happened? Did you get the news flash about what happened in Afghanistan? You think that's a fearsome entity? The Taliban think that America is a fearsome entity when they're celebrating the 3rd anniversary of capturing, of killing 13 Americans and capturing billions of dollars worth of America's top high-grade military equipment, that they're looking as a fearsome entity? I hope they say that to him. I didn't get up to this part yet.
The President of the United States speaks on behalf of that entity, and they fear that entity. When Donald Trump walks in the room, they're like, oh, thank God, what a clown. Okay, so easy to manipulate him. Sure. Here, let's tell him we like him. Hey, Donnie, we like you. You think, oh, I like you. I'm going to write love letters to you. So while
he's like he's a child. He's literally a child. I mean, look at him.
He said he was writing love letters to Kim Jong-un. Kim Jong-un built 6 nukes. What happened, tough guy? You let him build all those nukes. You did nothing about it because you're an idiot, so easily manipulated. You think Putin doesn't know that? They do a meeting, Trump comes out, he's like, Putin is right, not our intelligence, the U.S. sucks, Putin is right. That weak guy just cares about money. You know what he says about the Saudis? They give me $30-40 million for an apartment. Shouldn't I like them? Obviously.
What are you talking about? It's like, literally, I have no idea what he's even saying at this point.
Corrupt, easily manipulated, a tiny mind. He's done nothing but encourage our enemies.
Well, Kamala Harris is not exactly anyone's version of genius or intellect.
By being so weak and such an obvious narcissist. Do you know how easily I could play that guy if I'm in a room with him?
Well, yeah. Why haven't you? Why haven't you played him? Why didn't you play him? Why didn't you play him until leaving the race? Why don't you do that?
You just go tweak here, tweak there, and he's discombobulated, right? And if you're not going to do it by flattery, which is the easiest thing in the world,
this is joy. You're seeing expressions of joy right here.
You just get under his skin a little bit. Hey, your hair doesn't look good. Oh, what? I'm going to attack you. I'm going to come.
He's so hateful. He's so angry. This guy.
Come on, this guy's a fool. Look, all of you know it. All of you know. That's why you're spending all your time about, oh, look at Kamala Harris. She's
no, we say look at Trump's policies. We say look at his results. That's what we say. We don't spend all the time talking about Kamala. The only one who spends at the convention, at the RNC convention, there's not allowed to talk about Kamala. At the DNC, everyone was like Trump. This is confession through projection.
slightly normal politician. Ooh, that's so scary. Come on, Piers, you're going to ignore the fact that the other guy is totally unhinged and the easiest man in the world to manipulate.
No,
like
I think. Listen, we've talked about Trump a lot.
Apparently Scaramucci wasn't very good at manipulating him. I don't even get it. Who's the one who successfully manipulated? Tell us who that person is.
I've known, as Anthony and others, I've known Trump nearly 20 years, right? I've spoken to him many, many, many times, interviewed him 40 times. I know Trump very, very well. Good, bad, and ugly. And I think he has equal measures of all three of those things. But I think that your characterization of him is almost, it's cartoonesque. And in a way that plays into
He is
Trump.
a cartoon.
No, that's not what he's saying. He's saying you're the cartoon here.
Well, maybe, but it plays into Trump's hands when you over-demonize him. You know, when I hear the left in America just ranting away about Trump morning, noon, night, I think you're missing. You're playing him the wrong way.
Piers, he is that bad. He is that bad. You're
Piers,
actively
I want to
covering.
meet Cenk in the
Piers,
middle.
you know what is? Hold on. One more thing. You guys, you know what you sound like? You sound like Democrats that were saying that Joe Biden is young and dynamic behind the scenes. Guys, we have eyes and ears. We can see Donald Trump. He's an unhinged man.
So should he be removed? Why is he still there?
Man, the only reason you don't think so is because you're so biased that you're like, oh, it's normal to terminate the Constitution.
You're
or try to murder your vice
Before I want to come to
president.
Vinny.
That's
hang on,
not normal.
Hang on. I want to come to Vinny. What I want to say once again, Cenk, you shouldn't misconstrue the fact I've known Trump a long time.
I so wish he would bring me up there for an interview. I so wish I could be sitting in one of those seats there just to refute this nonsense. I so wish it. Piers, hook your boy up. Come on, Piers. Seriously.
And say, I see the good, bad, and ugly. You should never misconstrue this for me saying that Americans should vote for him or that I would vote for him, or any of those things. You seem incapable of assessing the stuff that comes out of my mouth in an accurate way. You want to portray me as a diehard MAGA Republican. I'm not. People in England listening to this would laugh their heads off. I was editor of the Daily Mirror newspaper for 10 years. Huh?
Did you see your intro? It was 99% negative against Kamala Harris.
Well, no, it actually wasn't.
Every time I come on here,
exactly my point.
Totally in favor of Donald Trump.
It wasn't, but you didn't listen properly because all you want to hear is Trump bashing. Let me bring in Vinny. Vinny, look, Trump has got a bit of a problem here.
Touche. It's hard to ignore the pantsuits. It's very, very hard.
There's no doubt the dynamic of this race changed dramatically. I spoke to Trump the night before it changed, which was a week after he got shot. He saw me on Fox saying how it was extraordinary that he was back on stage at another rally, and we had a perfectly nice conversation. And I said to him, I reckon you've got this election sewn up now because of this assassination attempt. And he went, let me tell you, if I've learned one thing in the last 3 weeks, it's that 4 months is a very long time. Anything could happen. And the next day, Joe Biden quit the race, and all the momentum has been behind Kamala Harris and the Democrats ever since. And I've detected with Trump that he's really struggled to work out how to attack the new threat. What do you think?
Well, I mean, and Cenk made a good point. That establishment, the problem is the establishment and Donald Trump. And I don't care how angry, how much hate Anthony has for him, because I mean, Anthony was fired, after 10 days, sounds like a bitter ex-employee. Cenk has Trump derangement syndrome, whether you like it or not, brother. They hate him. What people like you don't tend to understand, Cenk, you know what people like you don't understand? Everybody is tired of that BS rhetoric. It's one man going against the establishment for us. And you know what, Piers? It's crazy. You mentioned the president of the ex-president of the United States was shot in the head, okay? And then after a week, nobody was talking about it. The legacy media, mainstream media, 98% of it is Trump is this evil man. And there is a problem, Piers, because people are brainwashed into thinking it's all Trump. Because people like me and Emily know, we're thinking even this is bigger than Trump. Okay, this is us against that establishment, Cenk, and it's never going to go away. And just to give you a little example, Piers, about how much these people have just hate and disgust for Trump, last Monday.
This is something I say over and over again. The movement of MAGA that Trump created is much, much, much bigger than Trump. And that's why whenever I see some elements in MAGA who are all about Trump the individual, and sometimes when he seems to fly, when he says things implying that the Constitution should be, bent or something like that, I'm just like, no. That's just you instilled our allegiance to you by re-inspiring our appreciation for our heritage as Americans. You don't turn on that, and when you do, then all you're doing is severing our allegiance to you. So I did see what I did. So yeah, this is ultimately much, much, much bigger than Trump. Much bigger than Trump. It's still this MAGA movement's still going to be here in 2028, 2032. We're not going away.
He was at Arlington National Cemetery. Okay, he was invited by Gold Star families of soldiers who were murdered in Afghanistan in 2021. They invited him. They wanted photos. Guess what the media said? He's taking it. This is a campaign ploy and all this BS. You know who else was invited? Joe Biden was invited. Kamala Harris was invited, and none of them showed up. Biden was on the beach trying to use his cell phone, and Kamala was in her freaking God knows how many $1 million mansion. Okay, guys, stop. Cenk, this whole Trump talk, we're done with it. Okay, and if they didn't cheat, I know we're gonna get into Zuckerberg and FBI and Facebook. If they didn't cheat, you guys would be done with him in November. But that system, that same establishment, we're just tired of it. We're tired of that system. And you're right, Piers. There is a problem because when 98% of the media is he's Hitler, he's this, he's evil. What else? FBI, he's going to use the FBI as the Gestapo. Are you freaking nuts? The FBI has been used as a Gestapo for the past 7 years against Donald Trump. Okay? And if it can happen to him, I'm worried about the future of the Republican Party.
All right,
that's the real talk of the time.
Let me bring in Anthony here. Anthony, if you were running the Democrat campaign right now, you've got a bit of momentum with Kamala Harris, although probably not as much as you might have hoped in the polling from the convention, which was a coronation, really. But if you were looking at the key attack lines against Trump, what would they be? Would they be J.D. Vance? Would they be abortion? Would you play the women side of this strongly? Where do you think he's most vulnerable if you're running a Kamala Harris campaign?
Well, I think he's most vulnerable actually on policy, and I think that's going to be her Achilles heel. If she doesn't come out and start speaking about what her policies are and comparing them to his, and she doesn't speak about the 5.7 billion people that are under autocracy right now and what America represents, not only to the people here in the United States and around the world, that's going to be her Achilles heel. But I just want to briefly address what Vinny is saying. I don't hate Donald Trump. I was loyal to him. I got fired. No problem with.
You literally try saying with a straight face that Kamala is more of a threat to Putin and Xi than Trump. I don't hate him. No, I don't hate him.
The firing, I was loyal to him for 2 years after the firing.
Oh, very loyal.
When he started attacking me personally for absolutely no reason, and then he went after my wife. I mean, Vinny's Italian. I don't know. Not allowed to go after my wife.
So he went after my wife. You're not allowed to go after my wife, but I don't hate him. I don't hate him. This is a guy who literally 5 minutes ago was saying that Trump contradicts himself in the same sentence, and literally did just that.
I'm not Ted Cruz, and so I will work assiduously against him for the rest of my life. I think he's a disaster, but I got to tell you something. 2 years after my firing, I was loyal to the guy. Right. You can go look at the tape. So I'm not a disgruntled employee. I see it for what it exactly is. I understand his systemic danger to the world, and I will sit here and advocate for anybody other than him. And if you guys put up Ron DeSantis,
I don't hate him, but I'll have anybody went after my wife, and I'll go after anyone. I'll vote for anyone but him. Yeah, Ron DeSantis, and you're sitting here, Nikki Haley, promoting Nikki Haley. You clearly understand nothing about what the Republican Party looks like since you've left it. Nothing at all. Zero. You don't get it. You understand nothing. You're sitting here trying to pretend you're enlightened, and you understand nothing about what your own party is feeling.
Well, Tony, just
he's sitting here like it's still Tea Party era, where like it's still like, oh, let's all just like trust in establishments. Let's trust our government. He's so out of touch. It's astonishing.
Tony, just really fast. 4 years of Trump, beside personal stuff aside, put that all aside. I get it. I understand. 4 years of that, okay? And then this 4 years of Biden and the Democratic Party. I put all your feelings aside. And by the way, I'm Assyrian. I'm Middle Eastern, but I do look Italian. Thank you. 4 years of Trump, 4 years of this Democratic rule. Be honest with yourself and be honest with our viewers. Who would you vote for? You would want this past 4 years than Trump's 4 years? Are you kidding? Anthony, put all that personal stuff aside. Come on, man.
Anthony,
I'm a lifelong
Go ahead.
Republican. I'm a center-right Republican.
No, you're not. No, you're not. No. See, this is reflective of how much many in the Republican Party despise Trump. They don't like Trump. He's the classic neocon. That's what he is. He's all about the state. Build up the institutions. And with these clowns like him, like Fay Ray in the FBI, like all these idiots, the same disturbed mindset that they have. I want to explain something to you, okay? I'm going to take a moment to explain something to you. We'll come back. I didn't even understand until after Trump was removed the levels of Republican animus toward populism and what Trump was building with MAGA. The reason that they hate him is because these are the type of Republicans, which are classic Tea Party Republicans, who made the same mistakes that Democrats made, which was, we know best, the public is stupid, we need to build up and prop up our institutions. And if there are flaws in our institutions, we need to lie to the public to cover up those flaws rather than exposing it. And they basically felt like if we lie enough and we get the media to lie for us and we lie and we lie and we lie, our institutions will stay strong. And if our institutions stay strong, then America stays strong. They look at themselves as being patriots. You need to understand the mindset of your enemy, okay? And these are now our political enemies. This guy, Anthony Scaramucci, he's a political enemy because he actually believes that the Nikki Haley's of the world. Nikki Haley is your classic neocon, where they pervert what Reagan said 40 years ago, where he would say peace through strength. And when he was saying peace through strength, he was like, if we build up our military, we'll never have to use our military because people will be intimidated because nobody messes with the big bully. As opposed to Nikki Haley, who her philosophy is peace through strength, that we're going to obliterate all of our enemies. Anyone who pisses us off, we're going to go to war with them. And we'll use our money instead of, don't worry about it. It's not going to be troops. It's not going to be troops. No, we'll just send in, we'll firebomb them from the comfort of our living room. And we'll just obliterate anyone who's in our way. And this is not the philosophy that of a populist. When there's a problem with the health thing, then we need people to trust our health institutions. We need people to trust in our judiciary. We need people to trust in our education system. And when these cracks and flaws in these various institutions became so glaring that even an everyday citizen who doesn't care about politics couldn't help but have them smacked in the face, they sat there and they lied to us and pretended everything's fine, everything's normal, everything's fine, everything's normal. And it was obviously a lie. So, and it became much more obvious it was a lie through the birth of the internet and social media, where people were able to exchange ideas and say, what the hell are you talking about? So then they tried controlling social media, but it was too late because the genie was out of the bottle, and the populists and the people basically awakened to the fact that, hey, there's a lot of people who are working very hard to lie to us, and they're not on our side. Ultimately, they only care about their own power and their own wealth. And they're creating far more injustice than bettering the world. The mindset of a neocon is that America is pure, good, and holy. It's your 1980s Republican, where whatever America does is virtuous and good, and Rocky beats Drago, and anyone who's Russian is evil. Anyone who's and most of them is really rooted in anyone who's Arab is evil also. But basically, it's this old school thinking. And that's what Scaramucci embraces. That's what Fay Ray embraces. That's what all these neocons embrace. And it's a stupid backward perspective. It's a very, very stupid backward perspective. So they think they're the good guys, and they look at Trump as being the tip of the spear against that. And they think as soon as they remove the tip of the spear is going to lose all its strength. And it's very short-sighted. They're not recognizing that the power and belief that's been infused into the Republican Party today comes from folks like you and me who basically say, no, we don't trust the institutions. We want to have more. We want to have more transparency. We don't trust our election system processes. We don't trust the NIH or the CDC or the FBI. We don't trust any of them because we see how corrupt all these agencies are. We don't trust the Secret Service. We don't trust the CIA. We don't trust the government. We don't trust our school institutions. We don't trust any of them because they've all shown, and the judiciary now has shown how easily compromised that is. No, we don't trust any of these freaking institutions. And another institution we don't trust, which they're constantly trying to prop up, is our corporations, our multinational, uber wealthy corporations. We don't trust our culture, which is so dominant, has been so dominant throughout the world for the last 6 decades. We don't trust them, that they're not trying to poison us. We don't trust any of them anymore because our eyes have been opened. And clowns like Scaramucci think that once Trump is removed, that all of a sudden that's going to change. No, Nikki Haley stands 0 chance ever of winning any primary, ever. The only reason DeSantis got the support he enjoyed is because he actually fought back against some of these institutions as governor. But then he looked too weak. He looked too ineffective, and frankly, like he's made out of cardboard. Yeah, he can pass healthy legislation when he's got a supermajority in Florida, but the ability to actually think on his feet, the ability to actually show an ability to be an effective politician or a leader when he's not completely surrounded by people who are like-minded to him, shows his weakness as a leader. So, yeah, Scaramucci, your ancient history. You don't understand anything about what the Republican Party is about or what MAGA is about.
Does not represent that. It's ironic because Cenk and I are on the same side of this thing. Okay, I'm a center right Republican.
Yeah, center right means you're left. That's what it means, and you're going to be homeless. You're just like the Liz Cheneys of the world and the Adam Kinzingers. You're a loser.
Love debating him when we're not dealing with Donald Trump. To his point, Donald Trump is a raving lunatic. He's an extremely dangerous person. You don't want him anywhere near the White House. You've only got 2 choices. I'm going with Kamala Harris. If you guys want to put up Ron DeSantis or Nikki Haley in 2028, I'll return to my party.
Nobody wants them. Nobody wants them.
I'll do anything I can to help them, but I'm not helping.
We don't want you either, by the way. We don't really care.
Guy, because I know how dangerous he is. I know how bad he is. And just to point out, because you guys were talking about North Korea and he has the right to go to North Korea, actually, we had a 60-year established.
As long as it's only green. Because if it's a house plant that actually has some color in it, then the house plant was going to beat him hands down.
Policy to curb it. All he did was give the North Korean dictator propaganda reels to play inside and outside of his country for the last 5 or 6 years.
Okay.
So, Vin, I hear you. But I'm going to tell you something, Vin. I'm just looking at you, man. He's going after your wife on Twitter. I don't see you as Ted Cruz. And by the way, I'm not Ted Cruz.
And you're a liar also because you claim you don't hate him. And then you keep going back to how he purportedly went after your wife. Maybe he did. I don't know. I'm just saying. So maybe you have justification for hating him, but don't tell us that you're not motivated by hate.
Okay, I'm an Italian kid from Long Island. Don't go after my wife on Twitter after I gave you $1 million of cash and hundreds of hours of media advocacy. No way, no how.
Okay.
And I will be pounding him into the ground until November 6th.
It's just not.
Let me bring in Emily.
Okay, lovely.
Emily, let me tell you something.
No, the problem is that,
make
again,
the
there's
election
too much
about
emotion.
what you want it to be. I'll make it about what I want it to be.
The election is not about happy, happy, joy, joy. This is our security on the line. This is the future of the United States. Vinny posed a very simple question. This is a bizarre election. We've had 4 years of Donald Trump. It's not his first time. He doesn't need to tell us what he's going to do. We've already seen what he's capable of doing.
We've lost
seen
21 million jobs on his watch.
The stability in our
like, what a disingenuous claim. You're going to start pointing to like the post-COVID numbers. It's like so stupid.
Economy.
Well, that was the
because Biden
pandemic.
did so well fixing that. This is not a joke. Everyone's
Yeah, you-
treating this election like it's Hollywood. They don't understand. We need closed borders. We need controlled spending. We need security. We need laws to become laws again. This lawlessness going around the country and the crime surge is being tolerated. What's happening on college campuses, what's happening internationally. You guys really sitting here telling me that Kamala Harris is going to be respected by international leaders has me laughing out loud. I'm not what you're saying I am, Cenk. I'm not obsessed with Donald Trump, and I do not hate Kamala Harris. I do not believe she's presidential. Somebody please tell me why I'm wrong. Somebody tell me what policies she will instate that will make this country a better place than where Trump had it before Biden was president. Someone answer that simple question. She's a great woman. I love you, Kamala Harris. Don't run for president.
Okay.
What are you going to answer now?
We're going to bring in a guest briefly.
No, let them answer the question, Piers. Oh, gosh, Piers, you're killing me, boy.
Go to the panel in a moment. But first of all, Cenk, let me ask you. It's an interesting point about Kamala Harris. I know what Trump stands for. You know, he
perhaps Emily, and this could be an effective debate tactic that she's saying, which is like, I love Kamala, because you're sort of taking away she's taking away the fuel from their argument that you just hate Kamala. It's like, no, I don't have a problem with her as a person. She's just a terrible choice for a leader. Tell us why she's a good choice. Aside from it, without using the word Trump, tell us why she's a good choice.
His messaging, he's a very skilled marketer. We know he's about build the wall, make America great, all these other things. He rattles off his greatest hits at every rally. I'm really not sure what Kamala Harris stands for. And after that interview with CNN, and it's no fault of Dana Bash, who I used to work with, I've got great respect for her as a journalist. It's not her fault, but Kamala Harris didn't lay out any plan for the country. And if I was a Democrat, I'd be really worried about what's going to happen at the debate if it gets into the meat and drink of policy.
I literally don't understand you guys. So Kamala Harris is the most normal politician of my lifetime. Like, and you guys keep saying, like, look at her. She's so weak. She's so this. She's so.
What does she stand for, Cenk?
Tell us what she stands for.
What does she stand for?
What does she stand for?
Yeah,
and you guys talking about, can I answer the question?
Yeah. Give me three things she stands for.
So, yes.
She's sane. We got it.
She's announced
sane.
them. Okay. So, number one, she talked about housing, which is a huge issue in this country.
And her answer on that is pathetically stupid. It is. It's a stupid answer. Giving $25,000 to someone is only going to raise the price of houses by $25,000. That's all it's going to do. It's not going to do anything.
If you block the
probably raise it by 30.
Private equity guys from buying our homes, that would be a massive gain for the American.
She never said that. She never said that. That's a policy I'd actually consider.
American people. What's Donald Trump's housing policy? He says, "Oh, drill, baby, drill." That has nothing to do with housing. He's such a moron. Okay, then you talk about the prices were out of control.
No, that's got nothing. It's not got nothing to do with housing, because energy drives the economy. You're saying he's such a moron, and tell us what's wrong about that statement. Let's late chat. Removal order avoided actual question as to whether or not immunity is. I don't think so. I don't agree with that. Trump says the object crimes of the cover-up are immune, making private eye conduct time-barred. Private eye conduct time-barred. Sure. Maybe private conduct time-barred. He didn't really address the issue as to the object crimes of the cover-up are immune. When he looked at it as the object crime. The problem I had, which I cited, I don't know if you got up to that part yet, but the problem that I had was that he said that the crime was the hush money payment, and really it's the bookkeeping. But it's not just the bookkeeping; it's got to be wrongful bookkeeping with the wrongful purpose, and we don't know what his mens rea, his intent was on that wrongful purpose, and that to me is a much bigger problem.
She says, hey, we should have a check on that. That is your grocery store, your gas, etc. Things that matter in your life. She at least has a policy. What's Trump's policy? I'm going to give corporations another tax cut.
No.
Well, listen, you were in office for 4 years.
That's not what he said. He hasn't said that at all.
To Vinny's point.
It's like, He has a whole Agenda 47. Nowhere does he say, I'm going to give corporations a tax cut.
And what did you do? You didn't even build a wall. You built like 30 feet of wall. He remembered it at the last second. The main thing he did was he took corporate tax rates from 35% to 21%. He gave...
That's not the main thing he did. I can give you 12 different policies that he implemented. But you want to talk about the First Step Act, helping people become free. Did you have a problem with that? What about funding for historically black colleges and universities? You have a problem with that? What about right to choose? Right to choose your own, what type of medication? What about America First policy, saying that you have the right to, saying that pharma has to charge Americans whatever the lowest price they charge for a drug internationally, which ended the entire pharmaceutical crisis in a stroke of a pen. That was pretty good, wasn't it? What was wrong with it? Why did Joe rip that up? Other than the fact that it was Trump CEO. See, that's where, he's sitting here desperately trying to come up with new policies that won't suck. When they ripped up all those policies that everyone recognizes, that's pretty damn good policy. Stood up for gay rights. I mean, I don't know what your problem is. You're sitting here as the progressive, and the policies implemented were actually healthy for Americans in ways that you would agree. You're sitting here screaming, he's a lunatic, he's a gorilla. Joke.
Trillions of dollars to his corporate donors. The problem with the establishment is that they work for those donors. Well, how about Trump? He says, Sheldon Adelson, Miriam Adelson, I'll just give you U.S. foreign policy on Israel, and you said it, and he brags about it. He says, oil companies, I'll let you set oil policy. He is so both systemically, and personally corrupt. He's the worst of all worlds, and Kamala Harris has these policy positions you guys never talk about while you pretend that Trump has policy. Trump's only policy is another corporate tax cut.
They should see it. I want to see these people refute that by listing off all the different policies I just mentioned.
Down to 15%, so they can keep robbing us.
Chang, why can't she sit down one-on-one and have a conversation?
I wish they would list out his policies. He hasn't said the policies that all he said was the housing, which was a stupid policy. He didn't even bother mentioning the price gouging, so I think he knows how stupid it is. Americans should be building their dream homes, but they're not. Kamala is mirroring Trudeau, where government centralizes all the power to further diminish our freedom, and the people are equitably broke. Yeah, that's the goal. Equity is we should all be broke together. If we make everyone broke, then we'll all be happy. Yep. It's classic socialism right there. Centralized power, make everyone broke.
Without another human being next to her to help her out and make her feel comfortable. She doesn't have any policies, Chank. This is the establishment that you were talking about. They want to keep us like this. Because, Chank, the average American that doesn't know about politics, that doesn't listen to panels like this, what they're feeling, their gut, their paycheck, their security, the border, all that, they're feeling it, Chank. They don't give a damn who's in charge. They just know that this past 4 years has been a complete shit show, Chank. And you're educated. For you to say Kamala Harris has Chank, either somebody's paying you, because you're smart, Chank.
No,
I say it again.
Vinny,
I respect the hell out of you. Somebody has to be paying people because you don't have no policies on her. Nothing that she's saying is valid or it's going to happen, Chank. They've had 4 years to do it.
Just to jump in, I actually do think that, as Bill Clinton, I think it was rightly said, these things usually come down to the economy, these elections. I do think the economy is going to be a massive factor. I think when that debate happens on the 10th, Americans will tune in huge numbers. I reckon it'll break all records. And they'll look at those two candidates and they will ask themselves one question. The majority of Americans who are feeling the pinch. Which one is going to be better for my economy, my personal family economy? And I think as things stand, unless she can turn that around, Cenk, I say this very respectfully to your position on this, I think that more people at the moment will associate Trump with the economy potentially growing better under him and her. I might be wrong, but I suspect that's what that debate will unravel. I've got to leave it there. Thank you to my panel. You've all been terrific. I'm joined in the studio now by the polling stats guru and author of the new book, On the Edge.
That's it.
The art of taking are risking everything. I'm sorry.
It's all over?
Nate Silver, great to see you.
Absolutely, man. It's been a while.
Nate's. Worst pollster ever. Oh my God. Nate Silver. I can't. Oh my God. I didn't say that. You see anywhere here where they mention Nate Silver? Maybe did I miss the description? Come on. Did I miss him? They didn't mention. And he has a new book. Oh Lord. His take on the presidential race. God. So bad. So bad. Oh my God. I can't. It is listed down here. Nate Silver gives his take on the presidential race. I can't worry about his take on the presidential race. I do wish that they had talked more about policies. I wish that had come up a little bit more. Just a little bit more. Someone can have a debate about policy. Tell us about Kamala's policy. Tell us why her policies are any good and not disastrous, except for the ones that are mirroring Trump. Tell us why she's not implementing them today. I just want to hear that conversation. Am I crazy for thinking that conversation should be had? I don't think that's crazy. I don't think that's a big ask. I want to remind you all that tomorrow night I am not going to be streaming. I have another draft. So I'm not going to be here with you. You're going to have to find something else to do with your time. I know. It's rough. Struggle is real. But you'll get by. I've confidence in you. You can do it. And I will be back here, God willing, on yesterday was Monday, today's Tuesday. I'll be back here Thursday. So, and I'm going to try to do a locals. Not promising, but you'll only find out if you sign up at goodbullshit.locals.com. I'll also urge you, if you're here, if you can please like and subscribe. Please. The bleeding is starting to get to me. I've lost 700 subs over the last couple months. That's something that a creator is going to notice. So if you like the content, make sure you stick around, hit the like, hit the subscribe, tell YouTube you're not the boss of me. The other thing you should do is do not, under any circumstances, never, ever, ever eat the lab meat. Oh, look at this. I got this here. I'm going to give you one of these because I appreciate you hitting me with a 20 near the end here. Kamala's unrealized gains is blatant fascism. The past 4 years in Minnesota, my home evaluation doubled. Yep. Home evaluation means real estate taxes. Walz added 2 property tax heights and a county tax and county transit tax for our carbon footprint. I'll need another more. It's insanity. It's insanity. They're disastrous. They're going to tax us to death. They're terrible. I appreciate your support, Snuggle Struggle. Thank you. I hope you continue to survive in that desolate northern tundra known as Minnesota. Anyway, landing the plane yet again. I will say to you all, I thank you all for joining me. I will be back here, God willing, on Thursday, not tomorrow night. And I know that might make you hungry because you're like, if I'm not watching Joe, now I gotta sit and eat more and stuff like that. Okay, you might do that. I'm not recommending that, but if you do, don't touch any of that lab meat. Do not eat the bugs. Let me do a quick check over here because I've been cited for not checking up enough. All right, we're good there. All right, don't eat the bugs. Good night and Godspeed.